Good evening. The latest major patch and release of early access is here. Highlights of the patch. The first campaign has been completed, the terrain editor is now accessible to the masses, and Celestial Armada's infrastructure has been revamped. I'd like to quickly point out to anyone that is curious or confused that the quote-unquote release essentially means hardly anything more than that they are confident enough in the game to market it to the mainstream audience that wanted something closer to an playable game. Frostgiant Studios has gone to great length in pointing out that everything about the game will continue to be developed. This quote-unquote release is not the end of the line for anything. Starting off with the campaign, they have added 6 missions, totaling 12, which finishes the first Vanguard campaign. The first 6 missions are effectively unchanged, except from the first mission that has received some extra mobs added to higher difficulties from what I can see. To avoid compatibility issues with previous save files, they have set all the previous campaign hero progresses back to level 1. So it is recommended to start from the first mission unless you want the extra challenge of having an underleveled hero. If you've already played it, then you can set the mission difficulty to casual and skim through them, then set it to the difficulty you desire at level 7 and forward. 2 small notes I'd like to add as well is that there has been added on console past level 2, which lets you view units you have access to, so that you can see what weapons and abilities they have before you, for instance, decide to upgrade a unit type such as Lancer to Hoplites. The second is artifact testing and analysis console, which you should simply ignore, because I'm fairly certain that this is just an outprop that they accidentally added a highlight onto, because throughout the campaign I've been unable to do anything with it. That's it for the first completed story campaign of Stormgate. The terrain editor. As the name says, the current editor has limited features, which does not include unit modifying, the option to create custom spells, or triggers, for instance, to create minigames and player-made story missions yet. While the current editor is mostly suited to create ladder maps, for instance, they have stated that the editor will have more features in the future, such as triggers and game data editing. I wish I could go back and see the terms and agreements for the editor, because it contains some interesting notes, because I believe it includes mentioning of potential future plans of maybe having player-made maps being monetizable. Most people's initial reaction will likely be negative at that prospect, and I won't fault anyone for that. Again, I wish I could see the agreement again to not put words into Frostgiant Studios' mouth, but if, for instance, someone decided to put potentially several hundreds of hours into creating a mod, potentially with custom-made models and voice acting, if the editor will permit so in the future, then it would be interesting to see what people could make if they could do so for a living. I will make a dedicated video to cover the editor and what you can do with it, but if you want to test the terrain editor, then it is there now available for you. Player profile and account progress. Currently it is as bare bones as it gets. You will only get some fancy background alternatives to your nameplate, but this could be expanded to other things in the future, such as pets or units model maybe. Account level and faction level. Account level looks like something that you will progress universally, and faction level looks like something for respective factions. Playing the campaign, co-op or ladder with Vanguard will level up your Vanguard progress, for instance. Again, this is currently as bare bones as it gets, but there will hopefully be added more in the future patches. 2 new AI skirmish enemies, Major Guild and Vokurka. This is a sort of mini single player co-op option without objectives against special enemies. Led by an hero unit, Major Guild and Vokurka respectively. They will have limited units with some modifications and perks depending on the difficulty you set. Currently you cannot play as these, but it would be interesting if you could do so in the future. For some reason this is under bug fixes. In AI Skirmish, the AI will now focus more on unit production rather than producing structures. You can now rejoin in AI Skirmish matches, and a brutal difficulty has been added to AI Skirmishes. Custom Games tab. Previously, most people have been using this to set up matches against AI or play against each other in unranked matches. Now it can also be used to test and play editor maps. I've had some problems with it myself, but most of my time so far after the latest patch has been spent trying to finish the campaign on Brutal to try and report anything special. Look at this, ain't they a special boy? The Stormgate has been reworked slightly to better support free-for-all. I've tried to quickly make an 4-player free-for-all map in the editor, but could not launch it, so I cannot comment on this. Loading screen, observer role and replay interface has also been updated to accommodate more players. For those who wanted it, there is now also Steam achievement for the campaign. Campaign and ladder resets. For the campaign, if you have reached or beaten mission 6, you can continue from there, but heroes will be stripped of levels and items gained. There was problems earlier with heroes having abilities that was different from previous patches that caused compatibility issues. And there are items that has been removed over time, which again will likely cause compatibility issues with current patch data, so that's why things has been wiped out. For the ladder, I'm not sure why the ladder was reset, but it will quickly even out. Co-op has unfortunately not changed, and they acknowledge that, with reminders that they will continue its development in the future. They have mentioned in the past that they do not have the smooth data transferring option yet between game modes, so if they redesign or bug fix something in the ladder unit roster, they will have to manually do so in a co-op campaign. Once that has been resolved and they have solidified faction mechanics and identities, such as Celestial Armada's revamp that's coming up, they will likely resume work on the co-op. Backer reward for Kickstarter and Indiegogo supporters. Random backers' names will be added onto units, and small but neat detail for the initial people who paved the way for Stormgate to be possible. Twitch drops for the people who watch Stormgate on Twitch with a linked Steam account. You might get a special Fog of War digital distortion for doing so up to the 1st of September. Pricing and bundle adjustments. The campaigns has become a little cheaper. All heroes, I assume in co-op, will be cheaper for now as a compensation for no co-op updates. A small note, they also mentioned that it is because Team Mayhem is not available. If this means that co-op commanders you purchase will also make the same ones available in Team Mayhem or not, I cannot tell, but it looks like they are hinting that this might be the case. New names for bundles, Base Edition and Deluxe Edition, and a new Ultimate Edition bundle, which include the heroes Riker and Walls. For some reason this is added into bug fixes, but are included here before balancing. Move line dragging has been refined. Initially I read this customizable distance threshold as a limited total length, but it will segment the line into longer and longer straight lines depending on how you adjust it. From what I read, if you right click on a unit, you will not issue an order but start drawing a line. And line dragging now follows the rules of drag selection, meaning that you can't accidentally move the camera or accidentally use abilities. Faction balancing. I choose this time to start with the Celestial Armada because they have received updates on how their infrastructure work. Cascade field, the power field of structures on arc ships, has been increased by 5 to 15. Excluding arc ships, structures will now have 2 more vision range, up to 13. Power no longer has any hidden buffs or debuffs. Quickly explained, previously if the energy was in green, you built units, structures and researched faster. If you were in yellow, you got nothing. If you were in red, you did all of the above slower. Now the only relevant thing about power is keeping it above red. If you're in the red, you can't make new structures, except from the rebranded power banks. No hidden buffs, no nothing. Power only lets you produce buildings if you're in the yellow or above. The green zone does nothing. Arc ships and higher tiers changes looks more complicated than a list of things going on here. The arc ship can now be landed and starts in landed mode, but can fly and go elsewhere. There will likely be a little bit of confusion about where there's a button to turn the ship airborne and also a relocate button, but I'd imagine it's just a convenience feature for if you want to move the arc ship elsewhere with as little tedium as possible. Arc ships and higher tiers no longer has the Skyward Salvation healing ability. This has been moved over to the rebranded power bank. Power Surge, which was an top bar ability, which was then moved over to the collection array, is now an arc ship or equivalent ship ability when it is landed. If the arc ship is flying, then you can't cast the ability. It costs 50 energy now and it can't be cast on arc ships or equivalents. The movement buff has been removed, not just because all eligible targets can't move. Power Surge now increases productivity by 150%, which means unit production and research. It now heals structures for 30, up from 10 per second. And it no longer gives the overload penalty, which reduced productivity and movement briefly. Grounded arc ships and equivalent in landed mode gains Zenith Scan, which was previously on collection array. Initial Zenith Scan reveals a large area for 5 seconds, up from 2 seconds, and a small usual area for 10 seconds, up from 8. Arc ships will automatically construct collection array if they land near a Luminite mine for free, with a 60-second cooldown. The arc ship by default without upgrades now flies at a movement speed of 2, up from 1. Its build time has been halved to 30 seconds. Its tier 1 form, arc ship, has 400 more hit points, up to 1200. And the tier 3 arc fortress keeps the Fate's End ability, while also gaining Purify when in flying mode. It is not mentioned here, but the arc ship in grounded mode is again responsible for producing prism walkers. Collection array. Quickly summarized, it has been stripped of all of its features and has been streamlined into purely a mining purpose structure. It no longer passively mines Luminite on its own. It is now constructed by landing arc ships next to a Luminite mine for free. It no longer produces prisms. It no longer has abilities like Sovereign's Watch, Power Surge or Zenith Scan. It no longer costs unit supply. Health has been reduced by 200 to 600. It now has a build time of 25 seconds, and it can no longer lift off. Morph Core has been reworked. Morph Cores no longer has an attack and do not cost supply, and they are not independently built. They can now only build stuff in cascade fields. They no longer speed build as they previously did. Except from arc ships and collection array, you can now convert all structures into morph cores, which refunds the structures minus 50 Luminite. Then you can use the morph core to turn them into buildings again, minus 50 Luminite of the ordinary cost, meaning that you effectively lose nothing unless you lose the morph core itself. In theory at least, but currently for some reason the new power banks only refund 25 Luminite instead of 50, meaning that you lose 25 Luminite for converting a new power bank into a morph core. This could be an accident, or it's intentional, if it gets patched in the future. Neat. Power Bank, Link Node, Strike Node and Warp Node has been removed from the game. You now have a default Gracelite node, which provides power for making more structures, has greater cascade field range like the Link node, and can, for free, be converted into Judicator or Energizer node or back. All the removed structures merge into one. It costs 100 Luminite and 10 seconds to produce. Gracelite, the default one, has an Skyward Salvation healing, except it heals for 600 hit point over 30 seconds and cancels if the unit takes damage, costing 25 energy. Judicator node is the defensive structure, which takes 30 seconds to convert to, unlike the other two, and has an attack which costs 10 energy per shot. And Energizer node, which has the old power bank energy transfer feature. It can recover the energy of everything except from arc ships and equivalents, or other Energizer nodes. The Therium Purifier has been removed because Prisms now remotely delivers Therium. The upgrade Silver's Fury has been removed and Celestial Hyperdrive has been moved to the Guardian Nexus. The Guardian Nexus, as mentioned, now has the Celestial Hyperdrive upgrade for faster flying structures. Iron Gate, the cost has been increased by 50 Luminite. It is now slightly smaller. It is now on tier 2 ordinary structure instead of an Arc Fortress ability. Right-clicking has load unit on higher priority than rally. This means that if you have the Iron Gate selected and click on a unit, that unit will enter the Iron Gate. And it says here that the sentry post rally command is no longer set from the quick macro panel. This is likely a copy-paste error, but what this means is that if you use the quick menu option to select all unit productions, you can set a new rally point which will not affect the Iron Gates. Prism has, for better or worse, lost their uniqueness, becoming more like Vanguard and Infernal. They now only cost 40 Luminite, one supply, has 65 hit point and 10 vision range. Has movement speed of 5, arc ships that produce them start with 3 worker production charges, and gets a new charge every 14 seconds. 12 prisms are needed for maximal collection array mining. They do not need to return anywhere to collect Therium. They are all almost half as small. They do not increase their movement speed over time so long as they move, and as now a grounded unit, they have an attack and can be used to attack trees as well. That's the exciting parts out of the way. Now units. Archons, 1 less base damage and a high energy attacks bonus damage has been increased from 300 to 400 bonus damage. Kree's roll-out research cost has been halved to 50 Luminite and Therium. Scanners has become more accessible for early game. The Therium cost has been removed and it now costs 50 Luminite. Health has been increased by 10 to 50. It can no longer fly. It no longer has any requirement beside Creation Chamber. And on the ground mode, it now has a movement speed of 7. Cabals now cost 25 less Luminite. The Levitate's debuff has been buffed, now increasing movement speed by 35 up from 25. Vector's cost has been decreased by 25 Luminite, and it has become smaller as well. Sky's cost has been decreased by 50 Luminite. Seraphim's bonus damage against Stormgate has been increased from 300 to 400%, and Animancer's has become smaller as well. That's it for the Celestial Armadas. Now for Vanguard. Servo's Overcharge is now a targeted ability. Its movement speed bonus has been reduced from 50 to 30%. Servo's Overcharge armor bonus has been increased from 25 to 50 armor. Rampart's reinforceability won't autocast its ability for 2 seconds after it has been made, so that you can turn it off and manually cast it if you so desire. And it will not auto-cast on targets with more than 75% of its hit points. Sentry posts. When selected, you can use right-click on units to load them into the sentry posts, and they will no longer have their rally point be changed through quick macro unit production. Flak cannon anti-ground weapon range has been decreased from 12 to 10. Hedgehogs has become smaller. Sentinel's bug fix, it caused more damage than intended. Infernal's balancing. Shrine's worker charges take 1 more seconds for when you get a new charge. Summon Effigy now has a 25-second cooldown if used off Shroud. Hellspawn Resurgence cost has been decreased by 25 energy to 50. Tribute Pyre, the supply structure, now grants 5 more supply up to 15. Shroudstone's weapon has been buffed, going from a weapon period of 1.8 to 1.3. Effigy's vision range has been increased from 11 to 15. Imp's weapon missile speed has been increased from 15 to 20. Missile speed is how fast the projectile travels. Gremlins, the small unit around Tribute Pyre, no longer provides 2 supply each. Health has been increased by 20 to 65. Weapon damage has been increased by 2 to 8. Weapon missile speed has been increased from 10 to 20. Fixed and bug that allowed gremlins to be affected by cursed. Brute's health has been increased by 5 to 200. Attack period has been nerfed from 1.2 to 1.6. Infernal's Fury stun duration has been halved to 0.25 seconds. Brute's Fiend spawning has been toned down while the Fiend itself has been buffed. Brutes now spawn only 1 Fiend on death, unless the Brute splits itself while it has more than 90% hit point, in which case it spawns 2 Fiends. The upgrade Fiendsplosion now only adds 1 Imp on death, meaning that Brutes spawn 2 Fiends when dying from below 90% hit point, or 3 when above 90. Fiend's health has been increased from 50 to 60, and its damage has been increased from 7 to 12. Guns now has an old upgrade return, which makes their attacks curse the target if the targets are standing on Shroud. A short research that costs 25 Luminite Ethereum and has a 30-second research timer. Spriggan's cost has been decreased by 25 Luminite. Flight Dragons are now less of a unique unit, and more of a tier 3 conventional unit. It is no longer spawned with charges, but instead takes 120 seconds to be produced. Its Blighted Breath cast range has been decreased from 13 to 4, and Blighted Breath's cooldown has been increased from 10 to 15 seconds. That's it for factions, and lastly neutrals. Stormgates now function in free-for-all custom matches. One of the Stormgate reward units, Faerun, has had its healing potential nerfed. Infuse life energy cost has been doubled to 1 per second, and it only heals for 30 per second. The reward, Dark Throne, is now a tier 3 reward. Stormgate's tiers are increased for each time they spawn, meaning that the second Stormgate is tier 2 and the third spawning along with future ones are tier 3. Power stones can no longer be stacked on the same unit if I read this correctly. You could previously buff an Helicarrier, Flayed Dragon or Archangels for instance twice to make them ridiculous. Soulforge is no longer available for tier 2 and you only get 2 of them instead of 3 at tier 3. That's it before bug fixes, and for the people who are curious about what the foreseeable future of Stormgate will look like, here's the roadmap. Early iteration of the special 3 vs 3 Team Mayhem. The more interesting part of the editor. New units, either adding or replacing existing ones. Celestial Armada updates, Likely unit overhaul since we got infrastructure changes. Expanded versus AI skirmish with new challenges. We got Major Gelt and Volkurka, which you can play against. More challenges likely means more of these. Distant goals. Co-op overhaul and relaunch. In my opinion, the current commanders have been a little lackluster in how little they deviate from each other, featuring maybe 2 or 3 barely altered units. Hopefully the respective sub-factions will deviate far more from their faction's default setup with new structures, units and unique mechanics, now that they have far more of the foundation of the game set in stone. The next story campaign, playing as Infernals. Editor and a custom game economy system. I have no idea what this could mean. And more free campaign missions. This is pure speculation, but I'm guessing that this will be quote-unquote prequel content, giving small glimpses into what the initial infernal invasion of Earth looked like. This is gold for the future, that could change, but it is some idea of what the future will look like. And for those who want to hear the bug fixes. Fix the bug where Amara's attack sound effect would become too quiet, or not happen at all after using her abilities. Campaign missions now correctly reflect the player's selected difficulty. Improved clarity around chapter ownership and completion requirement, especially when campaign chapters are purchased out of order. Cancelling an upgrading shrine will no longer keep the model of an elder shrine. Try to fix a bug where targeted abilities would not cast properly. Putting more than 12 prisms in collection array will mark them as idle. In co-op, Gauntz uses an updated weapon projectile. Gauntz uses the correct voice lines. Harbingers uses an updated infernal model. Malak no longer loses sound effects when casting abilities. Improved terrain editing performance with symmetry enabled. Tool brushes now function without having to move the mouse. Enhanced editing tools for working with abyss terrain. Change the build test hotkey from F12 to F5. Undo redo hotkey is now repeatable. Increased maximum brush size for applicable tools. Fix the bug where time of day preview playback state wasn't restored correctly. Fix the bug where black squares would appear in custom maps when switching back and forth from editing to the game. Replace the reveal fog of war script function with set fog of war, which now provides a better way to enable and disable fog of war for a team. Resolved an issue causing striped textures and shadow artifacts from southwest and northwest facing ramps. Boneyard Infernal Skull now has its proper texture. Cabal and Animancer units now correctly appear stealthed when exiting an Surge Aeon gate. Hellforged chains now animate correctly when constructed. Fixed missing death animation for Marauder, Bruisers, Piper and Cleaver units. Solar habitats and ramparts no longer display damaged VFX at full health. Fixed color flickering on Stormgates when transitioning from captured deactivated to deactivated. Tribute Pyre now retains correct lighting after being built. Shroudstone is now animated. New models for the Infernal Shrine. Fiends now play proper attack sound effects. Fixed an issue where certain units would not play attack structure audio. Adjusted Stormgate mix levels for improved clarity and balance during gameplay. Tweaked tree destruction sound mix for better blend with environmental audio. That's it for the exit of early access. A full campaign, one step closer hopefully to faction identities being solidified and the terrain aspect of the editor in people's hands. Hopefully what issues they have internally with building the code foundation of the game will be resolved and they will be able to put content creation into overdrive soon. But that's it for the moment. Stay intact and have a nice day.